Sarah Mulcairns with Ruben Amorim. Well, Ruben, firstly, how difficult is that loss to take?
Yeah, it's hard. We managed to score in the second half after that goal in set pieces near the half time, and then it's harder for us to go and press a little bit high, but we managed to do it. We score. I think we had the best chances in the game. Sometimes we drop a little bit the lines to be comfortable, but in the end the penalties can go both ways, and today was not our day.
You made a lot of changes, but your bench was depleted. Did you feel you had enough from the team to get you through the 90 and then extra time and penalties?
It's important to say that with the substitutions we had our chance to win the game. We were compact. We fight for the game, and that is the most important thing.
And why do you think those chances aren't coming off for your players up front?
I think we are better in the first ball and the second ball, and then Garna sometimes is not in the right position to defend, but in the perfect position for transition, and we know that and try to use that. And I think it's also sometimes the quality of the players. Bruno, also Casemiro, Josh is improving a lot. The connection, is fighting for every ball. It's running all the pitch. So it's the quality of the players that help us to create more chances.
And how do you cope when something goes to penalties? What do you do from the sideline when sometimes it's toss of a coin, isn't it?
I try to relax the players, and they know that we need to is something that is technical, but also is the moment. You have to be relaxed, confident, and is that we try to do before the penalties.
And look, it's been a tough start to your Manchester United managerial career. What does this loss and going out of the FA Cup, and as holders in particular, what do you think that does to this team?
The goal is to win the Premier League. So I know that we are losing games and losing trophies during this season, but the goal is to win the Premier League again. I don't know how long it's going to take, but that is our goal. If you think like that, we can suffer a little bit in these defeats, a lot sometimes, but we have a goal, so we continue to, no matter what, you continue forward.
Do you sense from the first 3 months, do you have a sense on how long that might take?
No, it's impossible to know. But you start understanding, I think the players are better. We understand better the league. We know what to do with the squad, what is the future, and we'll see in the future.
And then finally, even more importance on that trip in Europe this week?
Yes, it's really important, but we have to recover the players, try to push for the other players that are out, because like you saw today, they were really tired, and then we have in 3 days to a game, then again here at Old Trafford against Arsenal 2 days after. So we have to cope with that. Just a lot of videos, recovery, and we will be ready for the game.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
We're really having Premier League discussions here.
He can't believe anything he just said.
No.
He can't believe his players are getting better.
And the reporters asking how long do you think that is going to take? I mean, really, we're in moo-moo land here. We really are in moo-moo land. They're 15th in they're one of the worst teams in the Premier League. It's one of the worst teams in United's history. It's almost like, trying to get a baby to ride a bike and run before it can even sit up. I mean, we're miles and miles and miles away from any of that. This is a club that are laying low-level, minimum wage staff off. It's so desperate behind the scenes. So he seems like a nice guy. I think he's come in. He's over his head. Right, Sporting Lisbon, fine. Portugal, fine. This job is just a humongous job, and it's not his mess, but he's got the mess. Yeah. And I think at the moment he's just struggling to come up with anything that's tangible and sensible about how we can move forward, and how, Xerxes is getting better and the spaces are getting better and Casemiro. And I mean, it's frustrating to listen to. I think he wishes, I bet he wishes he'd sat down, thought about it longer, and known what he was getting into. He probably wouldn't have taken this job because it stinks.
Oggy?
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. He actually wanted to come in the summer, didn't he? That was the idea. It worked to wait until the end of the season, which is probably a bit naive and kind of not realistic. United weren't going to put up with an interim coach for 6-7 months. They had that with Ralph Rangnick. It didn't work. But You know, I mean, this thing about winning the Premier League, that don't forget the new CEO said about 6 months ago that they want to win it by 2028, which is the 150th anniversary, which is, again, very optimistic. That's 3 years away. And they might not even be in the Championship or the Premier League by then, we don't know. But, look, I mean, they're in a mess, and their season now, it's hard to kind of overstate how important the Europa League is. It was way more important than the FA Cup, but at least the FA Cup had a route to the Europa League. But if United don't win the Europa League, which is a really tall order, they're not going to be in Europe next season. So, massive hits to the finances. Even things like playing games at Old Trafford, it's worth about £4 to £5 million a game. You know, they'll miss 4 or 5 games in Europe. So, everywhere you look, there's a massive financial problem coming United's way. And I don't really think they're going to win the Europa League. So they are going to have to face the fact that they've got, you know, a summer coming where they have to get rid of lots of players. You know, we're talking about getting rid of players like, you know, the free transfers are going to go. Lindelof and Eriksen, they're going. But, you know, what you do with Casemiro, with Marcus Rashford, they're still under contract. Both earning over £300,000 a week. So, you know, Marcus Rashford's had a couple of assists at Aston Villa, great. But he's not. Are they going to spend, you know, £40 million on him and pay his wages? No. Who's going to sign Casemiro? I mean, it's worth £15 million on the books because of the way that they do the account. So who's going to pay £15 million for him? Nobody. Who's going to pay him wages? Nobody. And then you get into Mason Mount, Luke Shaw. There's so many players.
Maybe Anthony.
And Anthony, yeah. I mean, how do they get money back for Anthony? So there's so many players that are no use to Man United that they're stuck with. So I don't know how they get out of this situation. He talks about suffering. There's going to be suffering for 2 or 3 more years, and I'm not sure how many more managers are going to be having to suffer the mistakes of predecessors.
The first thing they have to do is get a reality check. They need to, you know, if the CEO's talking about winning it by 28, he's clearly not on the same planet as the rest of us. And Amorim's coming out, and the things he just said 5 minutes ago, we're scratching our head here, we're all shaking our head, wondering what he's on about. You can't start climbing the mountain unless you get realistic and figure out exactly where the problems are and how to solve them. And it doesn't sound right now, whether it's the coach or the people upstairs actually have got a hold of reality. And until they do, nothing's going to change.
It's also got a big problem, I think, attracting players now to United. All right, you might say, well, money.
Yeah.
But players will get good money elsewhere, big money.
Like how many people were fighting for the players that they've brought in? You know, the likes of De Ligt who've come in. Like there wasn't a big bun fight over those sort of players, and that's the problem that United seem to have continually had. Mason Mount, obviously,
injuries.
Big
Luke Shaw, injuries.
Yeah.
Again, you're not going to. People don't want to take players that are perceived to be a problem, be it with their attitude. Marcus Rashford, big wages. You know, Villa have taken a low risk on him with a loan. But then you look at the others like Mount and Luke Shaw, who have just had an absolute catalogue of injuries. That's the same as a bad attitude. You know, managers just don't want to take, clubs don't want to take that financial risk with these players on these long-term big contracts. They might take them on incentivised, short-term sort of pay-as-you-play sort of scenario. Maybe you can get something that way, but those guys are sort of ruling themselves a move. As Augie said, Casemiro, his career's just sort of winding down now, has been for a while. You know, who's going to pay back the money for Rasmus Højlund that they paid from? Who's going to pay back the money for Josie Zirkzee that they paid from? And definitely, even though he's playing well at Real Betis at the moment, and he's had a nice bright start over there, there's nobody even paying half the amount that United paid for Anthony. It's just not happening.
Meanwhile, a word on Fulham before we let the boys go. Hercules, obviously, you're going to interview Anthony Robinson, who it looks like scored, of course, the winning penalty.
Yeah, it scores the winning penalty. I don't think it was his best game. A little bit heavy-footed today. Fulham didn't play their best game. You know, I shouldn't really say that because if you look at it, United's best player is probably Onana. If you think about it, he was probably their best player. Some key saves. Fulham pressed when they needed to. It wasn't by any means a spectacular game, but it's the first time since 1908 when Stevie was around that they beat Fulham. So, or excuse me, beat United in the FA Cup. So.
Poor Stevie.
Good job you're far away.
It was 1909 he was born, not
Fulham, by the way, have got
I know where you stay.
Fulham have got Crystal Palace at Craven Cottage in the next round. Gentlemen.